Hi everyone, welcome to a tactics video where I'm going to compare the Leman Russ battle tank variants compared to the model Rogal Dorn and try and answer the question of which is better. As per all my previous videos, I'll actively encourage audience participation, so if you've got any thoughts or feelings about this, let me know in the comments, and likewise if I get anything wrong. So, spreadsheet time as always. What I've done is I've listed out all the Leman Russ variants and then the Rogal Dawn here. So I've then got how much it costs both financially, point-wise, key statistics and abilities, weapons, side weapons, and then some additional comments as well. So we'll go quite pragmatically. So starting off first with money. So how much does it cost? So in the UK, the recommended retail price for the Leman Russ all variants now is £40, and the Rogal Dawn is 60 quid, so 50% more expensive. Now, are they good value? Nothing in GW is good value. It's very expensive for plastic toy soldiers. But I do think the pricing is quite fair. So I've got some props today. I've got one I'm painting up, a Rogal Dorn, and then I think it's actually Tank Commander Mitchell, one of my patrons. But from a pure plastic point of view, you are probably getting 50% more plastic, to be really simple. I think there were some nice photos they put up when they first released this to show how much plastic you do get, how big it is, and it is fundamentally a much bigger model. Of course, it's missing its belly, but if you ignore that, it is a much bigger model. So financially, you are probably getting value as far as this compared to that. And again, GW value. Now, looks-wise, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Looks like something out of World War II in the 41st millennium, which I'm all a fan for. Money-wise, I think the Rogal Dawn is justified in its price. Now, points. I've listed out all of the variants. You can see the Vanquisher, Eradicator, etc., etc. The Tank Commander at being the most expensive at 205, and the Rogal Dawn is 260. So it is a significant investment, 260 points. It's enough that when it dies, you'll feel it in your list. Of course, when you lose a Tank Commander at 205, you do feel it, but I feel 260 is very material in any army list. So, is it worth more than its smaller sibling variants? Now, I won't get into which of these I think is arguably the best, but from looking at some tournament lists that have done well, it seems the Tank Commander is quite popular, and we'll have a discussion why. The other one, probably the natural one, is the Demolisher, just from the absolute carnage it can cause from its Demolisher cannon. But then I personally kind of am steering towards the Executioner Plasma being the best all-rounder, and we'll look at that in a second. So, points-wise, is at 260. It's a lot, but actually, when you look at sort of the top end of the tail of the Leman Russ, it's between 80 to 55 points more expensive. So it doesn't feel too bad. Against the bottom ones, you know, the Vanquisher, Eradicator, and Punisher, it's 100 points more expensive. So it is a lot more expensive. However, the key thing that I'm starting to use a lot more is the points per wound. This is a very simplistic way of just assessing what's the value of the actual model in itself. So, simple points per wound. I've actually got this right. So the Rogal Dawn has got 18 wounds at 260 points equal 14 points per wound. If you want to be precise, it's 14.4. Now, you can see it compared to the vast majority, well, probably the mid-tier options, which arguably aren't too bad. It's pointed about the same, actually. Well, okay, 13.48, but for the sake of simplicity, it's pretty much even. So if we do an average, okay, the average points per wound for Leman Russ is 14, which means actually this is quite a fair comparison. Of course, the more expensive versions are the Demolisher and the Tank Commander. So if your choice is between a Demo Cannon, Demolisher Siege Cannon, Leman Russ, or Tank Commander versus a Rogal Dawn, you actually are probably saving a little bit in the fact that points per wound is lower. So this actually makes it quite a level playing field from a comparison point of view, as the points per wound on average is the same as the Leman Russ variants. Now, just some things to tick off is they've all got a 10-inch move, they've all got a 2+ save, and where they obviously get different is the toughness. So the Leman Russ is a toughness 11, and the Rogal Dawn is a toughness 12, with the glorious Baneblade family being toughness 13. So this is obviously an important point because it will make certain weapons, i.e. strength 6, become wounding on 6s. Now, I'm not the most active competitive player, but I do know there are quite a few weapons at strength 6. I was playing 1,000 Suns on the weekend, and they seem to have a lot of strength 6 stuff. So strength 6 suddenly going to wounding on 6s does actually ladder up. So that's obviously a consideration to make, is that, you know, you are making some weapons less effective to wound you in the first place, which is huge, yeah, because it can make all the difference. You can make basically your vehicle hang on a lot longer than it should, just annoying people. Then the absolute wound count, so 13 versus 18. So I think one thing to mention on this quickly is the bring it down score changes. You go from 3 if you're killing 13 wounds and bring it down, vehicle or monster, and suddenly go to 4. Now, it's only extra point. It's not like comparing a Rogal Dawn to, say, a Scout Sentinel, which gives you 1 or 2. But it is still a choice to make that you are suddenly making bring it down more effective if your opponent draws it from a tactical flexible card point of view, or suddenly you are potentially inviting them to take the bring it down fixed secondary, which can be very nasty against Imperial Guard. So 18 wounds obviously is a fantastic number. You will hang around. It means most like really nasty weapons, let's just look at our example, the Vanquisher battle cannon can't one-shot you, and it arguably can't 12 wounds if it rolled hot on the Leman Russ. But again, the point is, mate, 18 wounds makes it hard for a lot of really, really aggressive anti-tank weapons to one-shot you. Maybe, for example, a better example probably is maybe some of the tower weaponry from the Hammerhead, or maybe some really nasty sort of like character weapons out there. So 18 wounds versus 13 is huge, obviously. It is a significant increase in its ability to hang around a lot longer than it should. Now, OC value of 3 versus 5, I think Leman Russ should have more. 3 doesn't feel like a lot. But it does make sense in the fact the Scout Sentinel, I think it's 2. I think it's 2, the Scout Sentinel. Then Chimera, Chassis, and the Basilisk are 2. Leman Russ is 3. The Rogal Dorn is 5. Now, 5 makes it enough that you can contest. This is obvious. Like, if you've got any cheeky infiltration units from your opponent who's managed to get on there with 5 bodies at OC1, suddenly you're contesting the objective. Obviously, a Leman Russ at 3 is going to struggle against anything beyond, obviously, 3 models. So 5 means it can contest objectives. Of course, you can give everybody all of these tank orders and make them additional OC, but fundamentally, a 5 versus 3, that's a big step. Yeah, you can obviously contest more objectives than just the 3. Other things to tick off is they're all leadership 7+, and they all hit on 4s. Now, put an asterisk here because actually, to my delight, I've discovered the autocannon, if you take on the Rogal Dawn, actually for skill of 3+. So, looking at these core things individually, financially, I think the Rogal Dawn is justified in its additional cost. From a financial point of view, the points cost at this point, we are probably agreeing that it's in the right place. And, 260, you're paying for more wounds, which are the same average point cost per wound for Leman Russ. It's a tougher model, in the sense it's toughness 12. And you're getting 5 extra wounds and also 2 extra OC. So there's an extra 60, well, between 160 points difference. Justify that? I think it does. So we'll see how we feel there. Now, before I move forward, one thing I mustn't forget is the physical size of the model. So again, my lovely props. Now, in most competitive tournaments, from my experience, this has no problems moving around the tabletop. Its little footprint. I'm yet to play this in a tournament, but I do know from a terrain point of view, this actually may get stuck in certain places. So that's a consideration. Will this be as agile on the tabletop as this the old the classic model of Leman Russ? So that's something to consider. It's not going to be as bad as obviously like I tried in a recent tournament taking a Storm Sword or Bane Blade or whatever I want to take. But this will get stuck in competitive games potentially. So that's to be considered because that obviously massively impairs its input into the game. It's just going to basically deny your opponent certain fire lanes, but it can't actually go and secure an objective if suddenly you have to push that model forward. So that's to be considered as the absolute size of the model. It can get stuck. Okay, let's get on to the main course, being all the Dakar. So what I've done is I lifted out the main weapons, the front sponson weapon options, side sponsons, and then all the other stuff as well, which is obviously a fair bit. So now the way I've basically done it is 72 inch range, strength 18, AP4, D6 plus 6 damage, and any applicable keywords. So as I said, I think the Executioner is the best all-rounder. 36 inch range is not bad, D6 plus 3, strength 8, 3, 3, and blast. That AP3 is pretty critical. If you had a look at everything else, The only other thing which has got a stronger or decent AP is the Vanquisher, which is a one-shot. That's not good. And the Demo Cannon, which comes with the reduced range. So the Executioner arguably probably is the best all-rounder from an all-round point of view, and I'm sure you'll think different. But I think if we look at the weapons of the Rogal Dawn, I would say off the bat the Oppressor is superior to all weapons the Leman Russes have, yeah? And then obviously you can take the twin battle cannon, but as you can see, let me zoom in to get a bit closer. You can see the Oppressor's got a 72-inch range, D6 plus 3, 12, 2, 3 blast. The twin battle cannon's got 48, which means you could have an instance where in turn 1 you want to snipe something far away you can't actually reach if the board is long ways. Pretty rare it could happen, but it's still a consideration. D6 plus 3, 10, 1, 3, blast and twin link, so you reroll on the wound roll. So I think what kills this is obviously the AP1. That's a massive no-no in my opinion. AP2, we've covered as AP1 obviously, but then AP none. And 12, 2, 3 blast is a very good profile. If you look at the other ones, the Demolisher cannon, 14, 3 D6, fantastic, but D6 is not to be relied upon. And I'll have a look at some other ones as well. But I would actually argue that the Oppressor is the best all-round, probably the best, actually not all-round, probably the best main battle cannon from the Leman Russ family and the Rogal Dorn. And tell me what you think, yeah? I think it's a very good profile, you know. If anything, flat 3 will basically munch all heavy infantry, most heavy infantry, I think. So Custodes, Terminators, for example, they're all 3 wounds typically. So this will just one-shot them. And of course, there's some other options there to look at. Now, as you know, Leman Russ is in the front cannon, las cannon, flamer, or plasma cannon. Now, they all serve different purposes. I personally just go las cannon just because it's a nice one-shot. It's very impactful. Not plasma. Oh, boo-boo here. It is actually a heavy bolter in the front. So forget that boo-boo there. But, you know, okay, so you got las cannon, you've got an automatic hitting flamer or a heavy bolter, which is a classic. So the options in the Rogal Dawn, of course, as you know, is the pulverizer cannon. 24-inch range, D6 shots, 9, 3, 3. And blast. So 24-inch range is stunted compared to the las cannon's 40 at the heavy bolter's 36. But you are getting, again, what I think is a very good profile. D6 blast, which means against infantry you're going to be doing work. 9 is great because it means you're wounding all infantry on a 3+ at minimum, some on a 2+. And even against light vehicles, you'll be wounding on 3s or 4s. I say a Chimera, if you play in the mirror match, I should be wounding on 4s. Or maybe it's 5s. I think Chimera's toughness 10. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So D6 933 blast is very good. Of course, you could take Gatling cannon, 24-inch range, 12 shots, 501. So I don't think that's any good. AP none is no good. The only argument here is if you get tagged in melee, the Gatling cannon can be spraying bullets everywhere and delicing the vehicle, versus the pulverizer can't, because it can't, obviously because of the blast keyword. But overall, I think the pulverizer is a very good option compared to the Gatling for one, and then probably, in pragmatic, the other weapons as well. So I think, you know, if you go on the Oppressor, 72-inch range, it hits wherever it needs to. You've got one weapon that can contribute a long range. The pulverizers are up close and get a bit nasty. Across the Leman Russ variants, you've got a bit of a mix. Obviously, the las cannon can do some long range, and you could have, say, a demo cannon, you could have some long range and some short range from a flamer or bolter, for example. So, but again, I think the pulverizer is a very strong weapon to be thinking about compared to a las cannon, flame, heavy bolter. Okay, on to the sponson weapons. So as you know, Leman Russ can take multi-melter, heavy bolters, flamers, or plasmas. Versus just the multi-melter or heavy bolters in the sponsons of the Rogal Dawn. So you've got actually less choice here. Now, less choice sometimes is good. It's less confusing to think about. I typically go the multi-melter, and I go Oppressor, Pulverizer, multi-melter. So then you've got like a nice spread of options. Heavy bolter, I feel, is really less applicable if you've got blast keyword weapons. But, you know, would you want to have a flamer or a plasma on a Rogal Dawn? That's the discussion here, and I don't know if you need it. Certainly, 10th edition is sort of ending up in edition where you want to have like high damage weapons. Flamers Flamers have been good overall for me, but as we come onto the additional weaponry, you can kind of achieve what Flamers do on the Rogal Dorn. So this is a potential contention point, is the lack of Flamers and Plasmas on a Rogal Dorn. Does that make it inferior to the Leman Russ? I don't know. I don't personally think so. Now, as per 10th edition, everybody can take stubbers, heavy stubbers or storm bolters, but they're the same profile except one's 36-inch range versus 24, one's rapid fire 3 versus rapid fire 2, so you just take heavy stubbers all the time. Sucks if you've got those stubbers modelled on, but you can just proxy it. So both of them can have it, and a nice cool detail is I think you can have it on the back of the Rogal Dawn with the guy on the back shooting it like at a World War II, Band of Brothers, which looks a cool, lovely detail. But everyone's got that, so that's a mutual consideration. Okay, additional weaponry beyond that. So Leman Russes can take a hunter killer missile, one-shot weapon. From my experience, they always miss. You always roll a 2. You never get a 3 or you never get a 1 to re-roll it. You just roll a 2 and it misses. So there goes, in the old world, 5 points. But because it's for free, it's still a consideration. It's a very effective weapon, strength 14, I think, strength 14. AP3 D6 damage, so it does hurt all vehicles, so it's to be considered. Now what do you get in comparison to that? You get either 2 heavy stubbers, what I call the nipple tassels, which I refuse to model because they go in there and they look absolutely ridiculous. There's the little things pointing out, so you get your nipple tassels, either in heavy stubbers or melters, the 12-inch melters. So are they superior to a one-shot weapon? I would definitely say yes. Again, my personal build is an oppressor, pulverizer, multi-melters, 3 heavy stubbers. Because 3 heavy stubbers, they're rapid fire 3-inch, they're 36-inch range, means at 18 inches, you're getting 18 shots, which is not to be scoffed at. So that's why I say, like, 2 flamers, granted they're auto hitting, D6 shots, an average of 6 hits on average. Versus 18 shots, hitting on 3s, probably getting down to like hitting 12 shots, 12 hits. So I think the stubber, 3 stubbers, kind of achieves what 2 flamers would achieve. That's what I think. And then, of course, if you want to go full onto the melter, melters are not to be scoffed at. 9, AP4, D6 damage, melter 2. So they do work, obviously. So you can see, as we compare, that you could probably argue that across the main weaponry of the main weapon, the sponsons or the front weapon and the side sponson, you probably are getting as much DACA overall. I think the oppressor is the most dangerous of all of them in the sense it does the most work compared to Leman Russ family. So I would say for that direct comparison, and the stubber as well, because we've all got that, this, I think, I would say on the balance of the oppressor cannon, you're getting more bang for your buck, more damage for your points out of the Rogal Dawn. Then I think 2 heavy stubbers or melters is superior to a hunter killer missile, and a little cherry on top for the Rogal Dawn is, if you take the oppressor cannon, you get on the side of it a coaxial autocannon. So super cool to see. They're taking that sort of reference from modern day armor with like a side machine gun, although it's an auto cannon, so it's like firing a 50 cal. And as I said, its ballistic skill actually is 3+. So that's great. It's going to hit a bit more, and then obviously you can make it ballistic skill 2+ via a tank order. So you've got that on top. So that is something else we're getting on top for an extra 100 to 60 points on top of the Leman Russ. Okay, getting there. So now ability-wise, obviously there's quite a few for Leman Russ family. I won't read all of them, but if we go through, so real wounds against monsters and vehicles for the Vanquisher one-shot cannon, great. The Nova cannon and the Demo cannon can shoot into combat with its main weapon as a blast weapon, and everything that shoots into combat is not having -1 to hit, or if you're stuck in engagement range. So that's decent. It's definitely to be considered. Punishing Gatling Cannon does dev wounds against non-vehicles. Fantastic. That's not that good. The Executioner, +1 hit rolls if the target's below half strength for the main weapon only. And the Leman Russ Battle Tank, the classic model, reroll all 1s to hit organically on all weapons, and if the target is on an objective marker, it's reroll hit rolls. Now, I've missed this detail, to be honest. This, for me, is actually interesting because it makes the Leman Russ Battle Tank inherently more accurate than the rest of its siblings, obviously. So hitting on 3s of a tank on a reroll 1, suddenly you're hitting it way harder. And again, if the target's on an objective, full rerolls on the 1s and 2s. So that's to be considered. And that's on all weapons. I think it's important to call that some of these buff the main weapon, some of them buff all weapons. And, you know, as I said, this one buffs all weapons. Exterminator autocannon, I think is really good. It gives AP1 to everything after that's shooting at the target that was the target of the main weapon. Because AP stacking in this edition seems to be very helpful. And obviously we've got the Fields of Fire stratagem, which suddenly, you know, you could be pushing some things onto definitely the invulnerable save or just outright no saves at all, which is lovely. Now the tank commander, now 2+ can shoot on death with all weapons, and of course you can also issue a vehicle order. Now shoot on death, personally, I don't like it. I don't like anything that requires the model to basically die for it to give you payback on its points. But I do know a lot of people play them, and they're quite popular in competitive tournament lists. I don't personally think it's great. Again, shooting on death, you could roll a 1, that sucks. And I was having a debate with one of you and someone else in the comments on another video about the interaction. Now, there could be some rule changes from the FAQ which make this actually not working anymore if it's in melee. But from my understanding, it still works if you're in melee. But of course, say if you've got a demo cannon, and let's use Angron, who one-shotted my Storm Sword a couple of weeks ago in a tournament, so I'll use him because I remember that quite vividly. If you have the demo cannon, because it's a blast weapon, you can't actually shoot that target because it's not eligible to be shot because it's in engagement range and you've got a blast weapon. So for some of the serious DACA weapons, if you give it to the tank commander, my interpretation, and if you think different, tell me, is that the serious business stuff of the demo cannon, the battle cannon, the executioner plasma cannon, they can't shoot the target, which kills them in melee because it's an engagement range. I'll tell you what you think, because I think that's a way to interpret it. So across the board, there are some good ones in here. There are definitely some good ones. Now the Rogal Dawn, again, I just gave criticism to the tank commander. That's only on death. Does it pay off? This one you could argue is only on death, but you can basically make one attack in the game damage 0. Now this is actually really helpful, and I forgot it recently against Thousand Suns where what's their Primarch, the guy with the wings called, whatever he's called, he killed Rogal Dorn in melee. He did exactly 12 damage at 12 wounds left. If I blanked one of them, Rogal Dorn would have been alive and actually won that game. So blanking one attack on damage 0, obviously you want to try and do it for a high damage weapon, but so in this instance, if I had actually done it correctly against the Thousand Suns Primarch, the name escapes me, how can I forget that guy's name? That essentially means this model is on 21 wounds, obviously. Yeah, so you can almost say that the 18 wounds because of the abilities actually is 21, it's 20, it's 19 if things get really bad, or it could be 24 if you're blanking a strength 6, damage 6 weapon. So in that instance, let's just agree it's an extra three wounds. Suddenly, this is a whole lot cheaper from a 12 point per wound if you assume that ability is giving you 3 extra wounds. That, of course, means fundamentally the Rogal Dawn's got nothing else buffing it from an abilities point of view, and that is to be considered because, as I said, reroll all 1s to hit on Leman Russ battle cannon means you're inherently more accurate. If the executioner is shooting into the right thing, you're adding 1 to the hit or hitting on 3s. The demo cannon, as we said, can actually shoot into combat if it's stuck in melee. So that is helpful. Whilst of course the Rogal Dawn doesn't have any of that, obviously. But I think the way to think about the Rogal Dawn versus Leman Russ is that this is an absolute DACA car. Like, its primary purpose is to scare your opponent and to kill your opponent. There's enough DACA on the Rogal Dawn if you buff it with Lord Solar's order or the Tank Commander's order, hit on 3s, have a Scout Sentinel spotting for reroll 1s. There's enough DACA here that if you pointed at something nasty like a Primarch, which I did properly, you can one-shot that model because there's a lot of DACA here. So flat 3 damage, multi-melters are up to, are they 8 or 10? Maybe do they melt or 4 or 2? Anyway, a lot of damage there, stubbers to chip away thing, autocannon. So this thing can one-shot most models. I would say maybe, except for the demo cannon, everything else can't one-shot models, and the demo cannon will need to swing the right way for that to happen. Of course, the D6 damage has to roll quite hot. But I think the Rogal Dawn's purpose is simply to intimidate your opponent and just be a deck of card to shoot stuff. Perfect model to Overwatch on. There's enough weapons here that you can Overwatch the life out of things. You can definitely do a lot of damage in Overwatch if you obviously roll enough sixes. So that's the way probably to think about the Rogal Dawn. It's an absolute sort of, it's a hammer. And I personally bring 2 hammers now. I've got an RT next weekend, looking forward to it. And then I'll bring 2 Rogal Dawns to see how we go. And that's the main, oh, and an Exterminator autocannon. So I have 1 Leman Russ Exterminator and 2 Rogal Dawns will be my output. So let's look at some final thoughts. Okay, so as I said, Leman Russes all cost or a potential 3 points on Bring It Down for your opponent, or 4 with the bonus. The Rogal Dawn is 4 points, as I said. And one thing to call it quickly is also the Tank Commander does give up Assassination. So again, I've said in other videos, your opponent pulls hot and brings Bring It Down Assassination. Tank Commander's got a massive target on his forehead. So that's to be considered. Now, let's just then pragmatically go through. So the Vanquisher Battle Cannon, it's a one-shot weapon. That's awful. One shot is all, you always end up hitting on 2s. Although, to be said, it actually has a heavy keyword, so it could be hitting on 2s. But still, one shot's not great. Nova, it's cheap at 160 points, which is cool. It's got a lot of shots. D 3+6 means you're getting a minimum 7. I would say actually it's AP2. It's cannon, which is 7, 1, and 2. And because it ignores cover, and because cover is very prevalent the way they set up the rules in 10th edition, I believe it's actually AP2 in most instances. And I previously actually missed that. Punisher, no good because 10th edition is about vehicles. Execution of Plasma is an all-rounder, in my opinion. Leman Russ Battle Cannon, or Battle Tank, is deceptively accurate, but the AP1 main cannon kills it. That basically means you need to buff it with Fields of Fire or an Exterminator to basically give it any AP at all, because AP1 against cover is AP none. Obviously, which Terminators even are saving on a 2, which would suck. The External Autocannon, AP1 being granted, I think is fantastic in stack that, and Rapid Fire 4 is a fantastic thing to plan to. So that means that 24-inch range, you've got 8 shots as opposed to D6+C, for example. So 8 shots is really good, and because it's flat 3 damage, you can still dacky your way through heavy infantry. Leman Russ Demolisher, very destructive, and a question mark I've got here is the ability actually any good? From my experience, when a demo cannon Leman Russ gets into combat, it usually dies. I haven't had an instance once where it's lived beyond the turn it got charged, in my experience. Maybe that's just poor play by Jeffrey, massive possibility. But yeah, I've gone into, say, Orcs, World Eaters, Chaos Space Marines. Okay, they're all pretty nasty and melee. They're bad examples. But in those instances, the model died before I could even do the ability. So, again, something that relies upon quite a situational sort of placement. So if I charged a bunch of Kroots or something, or Tau Firecasts, very different discussion, but I remember I just had a bad experience. Yeah, as I said, with the Tank Commander, is Shoot on Death actually good? I know, as I said, I've seen tournament lists where people bring 3 of them. Essentially, it's another round of shooting if you don't roll a 1. So that could be good. But as I said, if you do die in melee, from my interpretation of the rules of Blast Keyword, it doesn't actually help you. Of course, it can shoot out, but again, is Shoot on Death any decent? Not sure. I think some people do think it is, so again, you tell me. And then the Rogal Dawn, so it said 4 points on Bring It Down, but I'm going to convince myself and say I think the Rogal Dawn is better than Leman Russ, all variants. It's pointed effectively. Again, if you add on an extra 3 wounds for the wounds, you can blank. Something under 12 wounds per model, per point. It's way tougher. It means all strength 6 weapons obviously winning you on 6s as opposed to 5s. OC5 is a big help, which does mean it is a bigger boy though, so it will get stuck in some terrain pieces. So that's a consideration. And I do think its weaponry is a lot. There's a lot of DACA coming out of this thing. You will scare your opponent. You can be quite effective in Overwatch given all the weapons you've got. And I think yeah, its weapons, the Oppressor is a very nice all-round profile. Very nice maximum range. You can shoot to the board, a couple of boards over, one board over. Got plenty of shots. 12, 2, 3 means you're wounding basically minimum everything on a 4+, except for Titanic models like a Baneblade winning on 5s, but everything else is winning on 5s. So, what do you think? What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Tell me what you think. If I've got anything wrong on anything here, let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion as always. Any questions, let me know, because I did rush through this potentially quite quickly. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Hopefully you enjoyed this. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done a tactics video. I've been quite busy with work and an 8-month-old baby. But hopefully you enjoyed this. And if you want to support me, you can do so by like, comment, or by subscribing, joining my Patreon platoon, or simply watching any of my other YouTube videos. A massive thanks to my current supporters. So keep your bayonet sharp, last guy on old, Faith and Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn. Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten. Tank Commander Mitchell. Lieutenant Burke Nielsen. Colour Sergeant DuPont. Sergeants Adal, the Colonel Merrill. Veteran Gibson, Hall, Lundeen. Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin. Conscript England, Gillian, Goodwin, King.